Hey, all you folks, and welcome to Kelly's Chronicles, my channel where I sit down with people who are living everyday lives and listen to their extraordinary stories hidden behind quiet, normal existences. Because here we believe that those lives are the most important and need to be acknowledged, heard, and celebrated as to not be forgotten by the passage of time. Hope you all had a wonderful week. It was a pretty quiet week over here for the most part, just trying to tie up the loose ends, and hopefully we will have our liquor license by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So we're just kind of waiting on that right now. And we took a break on Sunday and Monday because we were sealing our bar. So that got finished up, and now we're just kind of waiting. So that was our week for the most part. It's just a very quiet week. Did some yard work and had a little bonfire on Sunday. That was nice. Roasted some marshmallows. So pretty,
Okay.
just quiet week. How was your week, Dad? How did things go for you?
Oh, well, we went to Los Angeles on Thursday
Mhm.
and came back yesterday.
Did you have a good time?
And yeah, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We got back in yesterday or today. And
Okay.
anyway, yeah, it was really a good vacation over there. And
Yeah.
getting to see Amy is starting to show her little bump, and and so little Freddie is growing. And
That's good.
yeah, and she's supposed to go in and get another ultrasound here pretty soon, uh, to keep track of how the baby's growing.
Mhm.
And everything's just pretty normal back there. Travis is working and got to see Sue Bell, one of
Yeah,
our
your friend Sue.
friends from our mission, and she's doing well. And spend some time with her. Your mom got her crabs. She was really, I think she's kind of
Yeah.
getting worried. She wasn't getting any crabs, and she got crabs. Went to the crab pot, and I guess in
Oh,
Huntington
we
Beach.
love the crab pot. I was wondering if you guys went there because I looked really familiar. I was like, I think that's the crab pot that they're at.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
good food.
So that was our pretty much our week, and I'm still busy trying to get a new chicken tractor built, and that's been consuming my construction time. It's sitting on the driveway about half built.
Chicken
I gotta
tractor?
get it.
Like a
Yeah.
yard thing to push around?
No, you put the chickens in there, put them into the well, you saw the old one we had, the hoop thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the prototype. That was a prototype. The new one is, new and improved, and it's gonna have a, remote control or, automatic door to let the chickens out of their chicken house and out into the screened in area of the chicken tractor. So you
Ah.
can move it around the yard. You got a bunch of chickens and they're enclosed and they can get to the ground. They will eat all the grass and any bugs or anything that's in there. So you got to move it. I would
Okay.
say, uh, ideally, you would move it daily to
Hmm.
give them new grass and new bugs. But whatever. It doesn't get, but we do it. But anyway, there'll be an automatic door because they go into sleep at night. They
Yeah.
go into the chicken house that's built onto the chicken tractor, and then in the morning when it starts warming up, yeah, the chicken door will open, or I have a remote control too, so I can hit that, and it's all solar powered, so it's pretty cool.
Ah.
Yeah, it wasn't like $45, much better than the old way where you had to go out and physically open and close the door to let them in or out. So, because they'll at night we'll open up the door and let them out of the chicken tractor, which is a chicken coop, and they'll go out and run around the yard and
Yeah.
eat bugs and stuff, and then at sunset, they will go back into the chicken house, into the
Huh.
chicken tractor, all by themselves, and then
Oh,
the door will either hit the button and close it, or it will be on a timer, and, you can close itself.
okay.
It's pretty cool,
Hmm.
very technical, and,
Yeah.
yeah, makes it a little easier to have chickens, yeah.
How fun. All the little fun, mechanisms and things that you can get for the chickens. It anyway, so the last time that we had our podcast, we, we left off with you telling your experiences about the Coast Guard and how you were introduced to the Coast Guard, and that was your influence getting involved with them and eventually joining them. So let's go ahead and pick it up there. I do want to give a disclosure to anyone that's watching. There will be death, there will be gore, there will be blood. We are talking about war. So if you do not want to hear that, you can skip the video, or if you have small children in the room, please remove them. So that's our disclosure for today. But go ahead and take it away, Dad.
Okay, I think I'll, recount some things that happened with the Marines. Our main, objective as a beach jumper team was to, work with the Marines and, uh, assist them in their mission. And part of it was, we would go out on patrols with them
Mm,
and, take we would be carrying about 60 pounds, 60 to 80 pounds of equipment, and the Marines would be carrying a couple of canteens and a um, ammunition pouch
yeah,
and their rifles, and that they didn't load up on stuff because they normally would just go out on a 1 day patrol in a certain op area and then come back to their base. They maybe got be out 24 hours, if that long. So
mm,
they a lot of times they didn't take any rations. They just took water, and because you're in those tropical climates, you don't get hungry. You have to force yourself to eat. Drinking's a different story because you're sweating, or and you gotta completely empty every receptacle you got for water. You'll go through gallons of water a day, and
yeah,
even though you carried the two canteens, but you also carried uh, uh, little pills that
mm,
you could take patty water or uh, crater water, stream, anything, and this stuff had iodine in it, and you would
okay.
put a couple of pills in a canteen and shake it up and wait about 20 minutes, and it would kill everything in there.
Oh,
You
wow.
would have no bacteria, virus. And they used to also they would issue you a little tiny bottle of proquinine, which you're supposed to take if you're out in the field, and it's to prevent malaria. Well, it didn't work.
Mm. Oh,
Uh, what would happen, at least to mine, is it was either raining or it was foggy, or there was always moisture in the air in those tropics. And so that little bottle, if it even if, when it was sealed, it would still have a tendency to get wet. And
oh,
once it got wet, it would just turn into mush, the
oh,
little pills. And so I'm not sure if the mush was still effective, but I just stick my finger in there, stick a I don't know, piece of a leaf or something in there and get a little bit out and eat it. And it was real bitter. Quinine is really bitter.
yeah.
And I would try to take my daily dose out of these little bottles. Like I said, it didn't work. I still got malaria,
Ooh, you got
and it wasn't,
malaria?
yeah, it wasn't severe. There's like about 10 different kinds of malaria. It's all varied too on how much of a dosage of mosquito spit you got. Because what happens, the mosquitoes have got these protozoas in their body, and when they bite you, they inject an anticoagulant into your blood to so they can suck your blood up, and that anticoagulant has the protozoa in it, and then they go in and they start destroying red blood cells. That's I think that's their lot in life is to kill red blood cells. Eh! And so
Oh,
I got I got what they call black water fever. At least that's what the corpsman called it. And and it didn't hit me till I got back to the States because it takes
oh,
a while for the protozoas to kill enough red blood cells to make you sick. And so, like about a month or so after I came back to the States, I got sick and I was miserable for about a week. High
oh,
fever, couldn't function to just lay in my rack in the barracks. And there was nothing to do for you. Once you get malaria, you're pretty much doomed to
suffer
just
through.
weather the storm.
Um,
And then we had some guys that got regular, I mean, really severe malaria and just really, really sick.
I mean,
And
did
there's
you have any fellow soldiers that you knew of that died from malaria while they were over there?
not really, not
No.
in country. No,
Okay.
you were just sick. You
Mhm.
didn't because they would give you uh I'm not sure if it was antibiotics, but they would give you something to help control the fever and the chills and everything that accompanies malaria infection. But
Okay.
that wasn't the worst thing you could get.
Oh.
We had a friend, had one of my fellow beach jumpers who was out on patrol, and he was working with the ARVNs, the Army Republic of Vietnam, call them ARVNs,
Mhm.
and this one ARVN uh, saw a duck walking in behind this guy, and he shot between his legs to kill the duck. And and my
Oh.
and this fellow beach jumper went he went ballistic. He said, "You crazy freaking this, what are you doing? Gonna blow my leg off, you stupid jerk, you know?" And
Yeah.
so they, as part of the apology that he was very apologetic on this guy because they're like 5'4" and this guy was like 6'2", and he was right in his face. So he was pretty, oh, don't kill me, you know. And
Yeah.
and so and so he said, "Okay, we'll give you part of duck." And so they cooked the duck. They, plucked the feathers off or skinned it, and they got a fire going and cooked the duck. And this friend of mine ate some of the duck because,
Okay.
as a part of the apology, he had to, be, I guess, gracious and eat part of the duck.
Okay.
Well, about 3 or 4 days later, he started having diarrhea, cramping. He was in bad shape, and we thought he had malaria, what we thought.
Yeah.
And, so he goes to the corpsman, and they said, "Oh, okay, well, we need since it's in your lower tract, we need a stool sample." And so he gave him a stool sample, and he said, "You got snailed." He said, "What?"
Snails?
You have got and you're infected with snail." And because you ate that duck. He says, "Okay, now what?" And he says, "Okay, this is our treatment, is we will find you some unleaded gasoline." They call it white gas, and it doesn't have any
Okay.
lead in it because lead is poisonous. He couldn't have any of that, but he got this white gas, and they said, "Drink a shot glass of white gas morning and night." Okay. So oh, and he said, and after the second day, start counting your snails. And so he would drink this gas twice a day, and then he would take a poop, and he would count the snails in there. And they were you could see them right in they were in there, just
That's
right on his
crazy.
bowel movements. You could see the snail. So he said, "Well, there seems to be less of them." And then he would say, "Well, I didn't see any today." I said, "Ah, it's working. Keep drinking your gas." Yeah. And so he did that for about a week. He drank 2 shots of gasoline, 2 shot of, like, 2 ounces twice a day, and,
Yeah.
it finally cleared up, and he was, snail free.
Snails? Really? I didn't even know
Yeah,
snails could get into the human body and do that much damage.
I'm not sure that it I'm not sure if it was damaged or whether it was the
Just
body was trying to
jet.
reject the snails. There were, I mean, almost to a man, everybody had they had, trench foot and crotch rot, okay? And you would get trench foot, you go out in the field, and you're wading through these rice paddies, and you're up going through these little creeks, and your feet are wet continually,
Yeah.
and you're in a tropical, jungle, so you're not gonna dry out, and a lot of guys would take extra socks with them, which was stupid because it was always raining and their dry socks would get wet, and so they were putting wet socks on their wet feet, and eventually you would get
Oh.
uh, basically trench foot. Now, it was severity was according to how long you had your infection and everything, but it was a fungus that would grow in your wet feet, like athlete's foot, only a little bit
Yeah,
more severe.
of course.
Then there was crotch rot, which was now everybody that I knew went commando in Vietnam.
Hmm.
Nobody wore underwear. I mean, just what you just well, it's just another layer of something to be wet
Somehow
all
get
the
the
time.
wash.
Yeah, yeah, and so even though you were going commando, you still would get, like, fungus growing in your groin and your armpits,
Ugh.
and I had it in the crease in the middle of my chest and my back for years after I came back. I had
Wow.
it for, like, a couple of years before it finally cleared up, and you had to put,
Like a
like,
topical cream or something on it, right?
yeah, topical, anti-fungus cream like you use for athlete's foot. You have to put that on your crotch rot. It was weird. Yeah, and that's just one of many diseases. They had a in Da Nang, they had a Swedish hospital ship tied up. There was a big river runs through Da Nang, and it was tied up on the river, all the time I was there. You can look
Yeah.
across and see it. It's painted white, big red cross on it, Swedish
Hmm.
hospital ship. And on this hospital ship were about a dozen doctors trained in tropical medicine. They had been in Africa and other parts of, Southeast Asia and down into the jungles of the Amazon and New Guinea. So
They
they had
knew.
seen every kind of tropical disease you can think of, and, they knew how to treat most of them. And so if you had a sailor or a Marine that got really sick with some of this stuff, they'd send them over to the Swedes, and they
Yeah.
would they would treat them over there. And, yeah, it was not a place for human beings.
And
It
yet
was
there are
just
human beings living there. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, then, now the people, the
How do they
natives,
treat
they
that?
didn't live in the jungle. They didn't live in the jungle. The only ones that lived in the jungles were your, Montagnards up in the Central Highlands, and they were native Vietnamese. They were there, I guess they came thousands of years ago,
Oh, okay.
and, they lived up in the Central Highlands, and then in Cambodia, the Hmongs, there's a lot of Hmongs in America now.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot of chicken farmers.
the Hmongs and the Montagnards, they lived in the jungle, and they were jungle people. But the
Yeah,
regular Vietnamese, they lived in the cities or they lived on the rivers. If they were farmers, they lived on the rivers so they could get the water out of the river to water their rice paddies. They would just divert a little water into the rice paddy from the river, flood their fields, and so they had to be on the river. and plus, if you're on down, you're down lower, and you're down on the river, and it's a nicer place to live. You don't have a lot of the problems you have up in the mountains because Vietnam was at least northern Viet was very mountainous. Now down in
Yeah.
the southern Vietnam was the Mekong Delta, which was a huge river, and the city of Saigon and some of the other cities were laced with canals, uh, like the Venice of Vietnam, and there were lots of water down there, very flat because it was a delta
Wow.
level basically, and so that was a different uh, environment. You get up into North Vietnam, though, northern South Vietnam, which is now central Vietnam, and it's very mountainous and covered with jungles. And the further you get from the cities, the more jungle it gets because if you're around the cities or around the settlements, they go out in the jungle and cut the trees for making huts and stuff. And so there is an area of cleared from the natives cutting down the trees, but you get in it, get away and you back in further into the interior, and it is strict jungle. Matter of fact, they found caves in there that huge cave, massive cave. You could put the Empire State Building inside of it.
That's a
They're
big
just, you
cave.
know, yeah, and they actually have jungles growing in the caves. That's how big they are,
Wow.
and they were so isolated that nobody knew they were there. It
Yeah.
took some Vietnamese out messing around in the jungle to find them. 'Cause the locals, they don't go I'm saying they don't go in the jungle. They they stay in the city or down in the river. They don't go in the jungle. So this guy without who knows what he was doing, but he stumbled on one of these caves. Now they're world famous. They got excursions going into these caves, and they're pretty awesome. And they also Vietnam had elephants and tigers and snakes. We went through one thing called personnel for overseas replacement, and it was like a boot camp for Vietnam. It was about a week long, and one of the instructors said there are 100 snakes in Vietnam. 99 of them are deadly poison, and one will squeeze you to death. Yeah, yeah. And the one that really I was really I think the most afraid of was a bamboo snake. 'Cause the
Really?
bamboo snip is exactly the same color as bamboo. You can't
Bam.
see them,
Ooh.
and they are deadly poisonous. Yeah, I feared them more than anything, I think.
Yeah.
And those stupid Marines would always go through the bamboo. And I said, "Why are you going through the bamboo? You know there's bamboo snakes in there. We don't
Like, don't
care,
go around.
there's other ways to die." Yeah, we were I know we were
Did you encounter a lot of snakes? Like, just you personally? Like, did you ever almost get
Oh,
bit?
yeah.
Like, I mean, did you ever get
And,
bit?
I know we were out one time with patrol and, with a company-sized patrol, which is about 100 men, and we were out and, that I was kinda over, I was smoking a cigarette. I saw all these Marines in a circle, making noise and hollering and clapping and stuff, and what the heck's going on over there? And I went over there and they had a king cobra in this circle of Marines, and this thing was probably 12 or 15 feet long, and it was now cobras will stand up and spread their hood, and, this cobra had a hood the size of a dinner plate,
Wow.
and he was turning around as the Marines were poking him with the rifles. He'd turn around and hiss at them and then turn some other way and hiss at them. And I said, "Man, that's one big freaking snake." I was there for maybe 5 minutes, and this sergeant comes over and says, "What the F are you guys doing over here, you know? You
Yeah.
got work to do. You can't be playing with these damn snakes." Said "Hey, you, let me see your machete." Get a machete, he goes, "Twing," takes the head off. And I said, "Whoa." Yeah, there was and
Yikes.
I remember one time I was in this, out with the Marines, and we always would dig foxholes at night. You usually slept unless it was raining, then you did. If it was not raining, you slept in a foxhole. And, so I dug my foxhole, and I got in there, and I had what called a poncho liner, which was like a camouflaged blanket, but it
Mhm.
was kinda thin. It wasn't a heavy blanket, it was enough to keep you a little because it gets kinda cool at night in the jungle, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, you wanna have something, and you can't sleep, you can sleep in your just sleep in your clothes without any problem, but, yeah, I like to have something over if you're wearing short, you had no underwear or anything on, so, anyway, you just take your helmet off, use it for a pillow, and then, uh, cover up with your, poncho liner, and I was in this one night, and I was kinda in and out of sleep because
Mhm.
you
Never
can't really
sleep,
be,
huh?
heavy sleeper, and that's it. You have to be kind of a light sleeper, and, this snake crawled across my poncho liner, and I was trying to figure out how big he was, and, and I was thinking, he just kept coming across, he kept j I said, "That must have been a bull. That must have been like a Burmese python or something, because he had to be 10 foot long." He
Oh my
just
gosh.
kept on coming across
Oh my
my
gosh.
daggone li and I wasn't about to pop him or something, "Yeah, you can just keep going, keep crawling." Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and you don't in the jungle, you don't wanna sleep on the ground because all the
Yeah.
bugs are active at night, and so what are you gonna do if you're a Marine or a beach jumper, you sleep on the ground. You don't have no way to put up I don't know, a tent or
Tenants or
something.
yeah.
You're just, you know, doomed to sleep on the ground, and there was all kinds of bugs and ants and hordes of snakes and all that stuff always crawling around the ground at night, and, you learn really quick not to swat them. If they wanted to crawl across your face, do not swat them because there are a lot of bugs had poison in them. So if you swatted them, they might just bite you out of for a reflex. And they had these centipedes that were, oh geez, 6, 8 inches long, and
Whoa.
they would sting the crap out of you. I got stung by one night, and he got up underneath the poncho liner, and I had no choice but to swat at him, and he stung me. I can't really remember. I think it was on my stomach or something,
Yeah.
and, it hurt for days and left a big welt,
Yeah.
and, lots of the ants of course, the ants sting, and, but the Marines would usually try to find an area around, uh, a cleared space where there was no underbrush or trees, or they wouldn't make you sleep under a bush. They would try to get this bare soil, and if they found something, they would, usually stop for the night, and because there may not be another cleared area for a while. So they
Yeah.
would stop for the night, and it was, red dirt. The jungle are, for some reason, there's red dirt everywhere. So if you clear a spot in the jungle, you're gonna have red mud,
Okay.
and, yeah, I can remember one time I was out with the Marines, and, my time was over. The Marines went into a landing zone, an LZ, for, they were gonna be extracted, on helos, and so they went to the LZ, and, I caught a helicopter back to the Navy base at Camp Tinshaw, which was a big naval base on, Da Nang River there, and,
Okay.
went back to Camp Tinshaw, and I got off the helicopter, and all I could think about was getting a hot meal. I'd been eating sea rations for a week. I said, "I gotta have a hot meal,"
Some
you know?
food.
I'm walking down from the because they had a landing, helo landing area in Camp Hinshaw, and I got off the helicopter, and I'm walking, and I know where the mess hall was, and I was heading for the galley for the mess hall, and this little weasel guy comes out of nowhere and says, "You have to check your rifle at the armory." And I said, "I'm not gonna take my right. I just want a hot meal, okay?" He says, "No, no, you have to check your weapon at the armory. I'm going to give you a violation ticket." I said, "Fine, give me the ticket." They gave me this ticket that says failed to check weapon or something on there. He had,
Okay.
you know, put a check mark
Some
next
war,
to it.
buddy.
And so I went in the galley, and it was like just a little after breakfast, but they still had there was a couple of guys in there still eating and stuff. So I went up and, and, it said and it was the cooks were still serving, and, I just said, "I'll get a couple of eggs, and some toast or whatever and some bacon," and I
Okay.
went over. Then I realized that I was covered with red mud
Oh,
carrying a weapon. And
no.
these guys were all all these sailors are just staring at me because they were all clerks and storekeepers and, and yeomen and stuff. They were not Marines,
Like a
and
scene from a movie.
they didn't even realize they were in a war, I don't think, they were just like, "Who the
Yeah.
heck is that guy covered in red mud with a gun? Ah!" So I sat down and they were all looking at me. Every once in a while I'd look up at them and they'd look down and
This
like,
guy.
"Oh, we're not staring. We're not staring."
It's
Yeah,
one of those scenes from
it
those
was
action
hilarious.
movies, the guy's covered in
Yeah,
blood.
right.
Everybody's looking at him like,
But it wasn't I was just like I had a lot of mud on me. It wasn't like totally head to toe, but a lot of
enough
it,
to make people stare.
and,
Definitely enough to
they
make
just
people
enough
stare.
yeah, just enough to make them stare and say, "Where did this guy come from?" You
What
know?
is going on with this guy? What's his
Oh, it was
story?
hilarious. This little weasel coming up and saying, "You gotta check your rifle." I said,
You're like, "Nope."
I want breakfast, dude," you know?
Yeah, it's like, "You'll have to take it
I should
from
have
me."
said I should have said, "You know that I'm armed. You know I'm armed, and I have live ammunition on my person.
Very much so.
Leave me alone."
Don't talk to
I
me.
didn't do that to him, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
just said, "Go away," or
Go
something.
away. Shoot.
Yeah, it was hilarious, and,
Uh,
yeah, and you come back if you came back to the ship like that, you could go clean up, but I was in Camp Tinshaw, so I there was really nowhere for me to go to clean up, except I'm sure they had, you know, some facilities, but I didn't know where they were at. I was
yeah.
a stranger, and, I just waited around. I got my breakfast. I waited around and caught another bird out to the Tripoli or the whatever ship I might have been on a Bunker Hill. Anyway, I caught another flight out to the ship and cleaned up out there, and they never checked my rifle.
You were very much
Yeah,
so an individual that had his own agenda as you were going through the war, I noticed. Just you
right.
had your orders, but you kinda had to do your own thing, which I think really helped you survive in a lot of ways.
Yeah. If I would have been a Marine over there, I might not have survived
Yeah.
because the Marines, they took some serious hits over there. There's 58,000 names on the Vietnam War memorial in DC, and probably I'm just guessing that probably a third to a half of the names are Marines. And when you consider that the Army had, they were in a lot more of Vietnam than the Marines were. The Marines
Yeah.
were essentially in Quang Tri province up on the demilitarized zone between North and South Vietnam. But even in that limited op area, they got they were really in bad they because they had places like Quezon and Con which were bases that the Marines were stationed in, and they were within artillery range of the North Vietnamese. And North Vietnamese shelled them with 10-inch artillery pieces day and night and just killed Marines. Lots of Marines died there. And they were expected, the Marines, of course, are under the Navy, but they were under a different type of op uh, operating instruction,
Yeah.
and they weren't like the Army. The Army was spread out and huge bases all over, like Pleiku and Cameron Bay and stuff. There was these huge bases with thousands and thousands of people on them, and they had big perimeters around them with 3 or 4 layers of wire and mines and lighting,
Wow.
and they even had food gas on some of these. And
That's
what food gas was, they take a 55-gallon drum, and they would set it up on a pedestal out in the wire, out on the perimeter of the base, and they had inside napalm. They
cool.
called it food gas, and they had a detonator in there. And if the Vietnamese came in, started to overrun the base, and came into that area, they would hit the detonator, and it blow both ends of the barrel out and burn anybody to death, probably within 100 feet on each side. And
Wow.
yeah, and so they were so in other words, the bases were very secure, and the Army, they took casualties, but not like the Marines. The Marines, they weren't engineers. Now they may say they're Marine engineers, but there
Right.
are no Marine engineers. The Army's got engineers. The Corps of Engineers that builds dams is Army.
Yep.
That's the Corps of Engineers is Army, and they have a fort. Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri is an
Oh,
engineering
yeah.
fort.
I know where that
They
is.
go the the Army guys go there, and they have have big class. Half the class builds a bridge, and the other half blows it up. And those guys they're awesome. And they
Man,
can build bunkers in their sleep. And the
that's
Marines,
cool.
they are just pitiful. They can't. They dig a
Only when it
hole in the
comes to
ground.
engineering.
Dig a hole in the ground, "Oh, we're fortified here. You got this hole in the ground," and then, and the
Well,
Army
you
said,
know.
No, we wouldn't have this hole. We would have sandbag bunkers with giant logs and machine gun emplacements and lighting and everything, and the Marines are just out there basically naked in the jungle and getting their butts kicked because they don't know how to build anything. They're Marines. The Marines more are shock troop. They're the head of the spear. When you have a engagement with an enemy, where it is, you send in the Marines come in on ships and they do amphibious assaults and they take out the enemy and then they go away and the army comes in.
Hmm.
The Army doesn't they do very limited amphibious operations. They
Yeah.
do some, but they don't they're not connected to the Navy. So the Navy, if they wanna do they have to go to the Army has to go to the Navy and say, "Please, can we borrow one of your boats? We wanna make" and the Navy might say, "No, we're using them for the Marines. Go away." And, so it's incredible how the military does not have I would I'm trying to think of it's not coordinated across service. Uh, they
Yeah.
they're very
Interesting.
they're very particular in what they do, and they're almost specialized. It's like you would think that the army would, since they have paratroopers, you think the army would have airplanes for paratroopers. The army has no planes for paratroopers.
So what
They have
planes
to
do they
borrow
use?
Air Force planes. they have to use Air Force planes to drop Army paratroopers. As a matter of fact, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, has an Air Force base. Pope Air Force Base is inside Fort Bragg. And so if the Army Air like 82nd Airborne, that's their home base. So if the 82nd Airborne was having, they want to do a night drop or something of air paratrooper, they go to the Air Force and say, "Hey, we need to have a couple of C-17s and maybe got a little shopping list, and they load their troops into these Air Force planes and they go out and drop them off, drop them as paratroopers and to training and
That's
mainly training. Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah. So
didn't know
there so
that.
there's none of it. There's very little of this, yeah, let's just have the army since they're gonna have let's have some airplanes, And they got helicopters. The army's got tons of freaking helicopters and a few fixed wings, but not enough to drop a whole division of airborne troops if they have Air Force to do that. And the Marines, you'd think that the Marines are in there getting their butts kicked, and down in digging a trench. You think they would bring in the Army engineers and say, "Okay, Army, how about building us some bunkers here for these Marines?" No,
No,
well, no, the Marines are just
you're gonna
hanging out
suffer.
there, like I said, naked in the jungle and, I mean, it was incredible. I can remember I don't know if I told you this one about the body bags. I might have told this one,
Don't
but
think you
they would the Marines wouldn't just go into Vietnam on normally, they would have these, what they call vertical envelopment, which is helicopters. They would sit around, I guess these officers, Marines and Navy officers would sit around and planning these operations, and they all had names. And the one I can really remember was, I think it was Eager Yankee.
okay.
Eager Yankee. Okay. And they went out. It was several Marine battalions that went out on this operation, and they encountered fierce resistance. I don't know whether it was North Vietnamese or Viet Cong, what it was, but they were just getting chewed up. And they would bring the Marines in. They had dust off flights where the wounded Marines would come in, and the corpsmen on board the support ships would patch them up, send them back out. And and then after oh they were intensely into the operation, the body bags started coming in. And these body bags are black plastic, and they have a zipper on them, and they would put what's left of the Marine in this bag and zip it up and put him on a helicopter and bring him back to they would either take him to Da Nang. They had what they call graves identification, which was where uh, dead Marines would go to be processed, and they would be uh, they would uh, give them formaldehyde treatment, where they're like a mortician,
Serve them.
where they drain the blood out, put formaldehyde. They would do all of that, and then they would put him in a aluminum casket, and then that aluminum casket with the dead Marine would be shipped back to the United States. And these body bags were coming in this one operation. There was a lot of them. I would say several dozen, and they were just taking them off the helicopters as fast as they could and going back in to get another load. And I was in my communication shelter, which was set right on the flight deck behind the island, which is where the superstructure of the ship. And then they have the flat flight deck. Well, we were
Okay.
right behind the island, and I was in there doing something, and I kept hearing some weird noise outside. It was getting to be, I think, chow time or something. So I went over and tried to open the door. It wouldn't open. They had stacked body bags against my door, and
Oh
I
my
got it. I
gosh.
pushed it as hard as I could, and I could see the body bags, and I said, "Oh, man." So I got in so we had big communications suite in this shelter, so I got on the radio, and I called the bridge. I said, "This is, Petty Officer Olson. I'm a beach jumper, and I'm down here in this communications shelter behind the island, and they've stacked body bags against my door, and I can't get out. Would you send a boatmate or somebody down here to move these body bags so I can get out?" And I said, "Whoa, really? Oh, okay." So they sent a couple of boatmates down, and they moved the body bags where I could get out. I was happy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
because you can smell the body bags, because when people die in war, they don't just like in the movies, they get shot and they fall down. No, they get blown to pieces. There's
Yeah.
pieces of flesh everywhere, burned. If they're hit with, like a rocket propelled grenade, then they're burned pretty bad, blown to pieces. And if they're on a landmine or something, they're burned and blown to pieces. Or if they're shot, there's especially with a gut wound, there's intestines and everything all over the place. And so this gets on the outside of the body bag, because you like I said, it's not clean, and so that and it's in the tropical sun. The guy might have been laying out there
Yeah.
for a day or so before they could get him, because during a firefight, you can go out and get a dead man and get killed yourself, or you can leave him there until things calm down, and then put him in a body bag. And, uh,
Man.
they would smell, horrible smell, kind of a sickening sweet smell of death
Yeah.
and blood. And, yeah,
Mm.
it was a nasty, nasty thing. And these poor Marines were just getting cut to pieces and being sent back in an aluminum casket back to their hometowns.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we could do that in Vietnam. We could, pick up the dead, identify them, categorize them, then treat the bodies for keep them from decaying anymore with formaldehyde and stuff, and ship them back. And we brought and there were some that were missing in action,
Yeah.
that were and the reason a lot of missing in actions, they're not, like, captured by the Vietnamese and tortured to death or something. They're blown apart. They get hit by there's lots of high explosives in Vietnam. There was high explosives everywhere. Everybody had them. We had them. Viet Cong, everybody had, and we had aircraft dropping bombs, and, and then the Vietnamese had these, rocket propelled grenade things called well, we call them B-40s, uh, and they were, a shoulder fired rocket, and if they would hit a man, it would just basically atomize him.
Yeah,
And,
you just kinda dissolve.
so, there sometimes wasn't very much to send home,
Mm.
but, they did, for the most part, there was a few that, especially aviators, that would crash in the jungle or something. They were a lot of them that were missing in action, but if you were out with a company and you got in a firefight, you knew who got killed. You would have sometimes actually eyewitness them being killed, like blown up by a grenade or something. And, so you could report that and, if they couldn't recover enough remains to be sent home,
Oh,
they would inform they would inform the
yeah.
family of that. "I'm sorry that, your son was killed in action, but, regrettably, there's not we couldn't recover enough of his body to to send home." And sometimes they would just I talked to the some of the corpsmen and said sometimes they would send a head or a torso
Mm.
or just anything to give them
Something.
something
Yeah.
so they could verify that that was their son or daughter. There's
Yeah.
only one nurse killed in action, but, his son or daughter killed in Vietnam, here's what we could find, and, it's not and the morticians, they had seen it all, so they knew how to prepare the body or what was left of it. It was, a nasty, nasty war, but not as bad as some of the like Korea. That was a terrible war, fought in sub-zero weather with very little air support, and, yeah, and we lost about 25 or 30,000 men in Korea, and I think about 10 no, not 10,000, about 2,000, I believe, were considered missing in action,
Wow.
and,
That's a lot of men
so
in action.
yeah, it was a lot more men missing in action because you were fighting a running battle. The Koreans and Chinese were chased our military, all the way down hundreds of miles down the Korean peninsula to Busan, down on the very tip of Korea, and they formed a perimeter down there and stopped the Chinese and North Koreans right there at Busan, and then fought their way back up to the, uh, Yalu River, which runs between North Korea and China. I've talked to Korean veterans, and they were unbelievable. Now they fought a terrible war.
Mhm.
Lots of lots of men dying. Some just froze to death
Oh my
because 'cause
gosh.
it'd be like 20 below 0, and they didn't have, proper equipment, proper coats, hats, and everything, and they go, be some poor guy up there, he's out on in a foxhole, and guy would go up to relieve him, he'd be dead, froze to death, and, yeah, it was, uh, terrible, terrible war,
Mhm.
and, World War II, of course, we lost over 400,000 men in that war,
We did.
and a lot of them were sailors. That's one thing I was always thankful for, being a sailor. When you're a sailor on a ship, you don't have control over your life.
Mhm.
You don't have control. It's the bridge up there with the officers running the ship, sometimes one man responsible for a ship with thousands of sailors on board, and
Wow.
they get into a gunfight with, another ship and, or get torpedoed or anything, and all these sailors, they're in the water,
They die.
and if they're in the North Atlantic, it's like the Titanic.
They'll
You
freeze.
live like 20 minutes. You
Yeah.
live 20 minutes and that's it. You're a shark bait. And, yeah, it was, and being a sailor on a ship, I said, you know, "Thank the Lord that I'm not in the World War II or where the torpedoes are flying or submarines blasting these ships and sailors going in the water and dying by the hundreds and thousands. No. Uh,
No.
yeah, you get on the ship and it was like you were on a little piece of America. You had a
Ah.
little store there. You could buy Baby Ruths and Cokes and candy bars and, cigarettes, and it was like being back
Back
in Town, USA or something.
Shrek.
All your fellow sailors are on there messing around, and it's just like a little city,
That's
and,
cool.
yeah, you get
At
teeth
least good.
pulled, get your teeth pulled,
Oh, man.
buy a soda, it was and they had big chow halls, you could go eat dinner or whatever, and, yeah,
Little piece of
it was
paradise in the
okay.
middle of a war.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say paradise, but because it was the thing that really, I don't know, I guess, I didn't like about being on board ship was men everywhere. No
Oh,
women, just men. And there's actually a song they would sing on Saturday Night Live when they would do the Raging Queen. That was the name of the ship that and old Jim Belushi and all of the gang would sing all these made up songs. And there's one called Men, 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 Men below and men above. There's men down in the scrubbers. Yeah, that was being out of the Navy. It was I know it was just I mean I don't know. I just I appreciate women if for no other reason than they're not men.
Yeah,
uh,
that's a good one. I
yeah,
like it.
yeah. I did. I was the thing. Well, one of the things that I suffered from was most men in the military, and generally speaking, played team sports. They played basketball and football and baseball and water polo and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
so they were used to being in a team and are used to having team psychology and all that stuff. I never played team sports ever.
yeah.
I was in
No, you didn't.
little bitty schools out in the country. We didn't have all that stuff. And
Never played
so
sports.
yeah, so I didn't have that team thing. Now I got a little bit of it in Boy Scouts, but that was like, once a week or something.
Yeah,
I wasn't and it really wasn't you weren't you didn't act like you were in a team. It was more individual accomplishment, like you're working towards being an eagle or something. And not everybody all worked together in the merit badges or anything. So it was more of a, like I said, individual effort and not a and so I get in the military and it's all team stuff. Yeah, I had some difficulties with that.
yeah,
And but I adapted. I survived,
as always.
and I have I've now I looked it up somewhere, and it's like only like 0.5% of the world's population lives to be 80, and so
Ew,
in January I'll be in that select group because
very.
a lot of the guys I served with are gone.
Yeah,
They died in their 60s and 70s. You know, because they had bad habits. I mean, we all had bad habits. We're all drinking and smoking, doing drugs and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. And especially the boomers. The boomers,
Oh, yeah.
they don't make it for the most part, and they don't get to be old men. They die as young men or
Eh,
middle-aged men,
yep.
and yeah, so I
Live fast, die young.
yeah I
That's
feel
yeah,
blessed that I lived long enough to have wonderful children.
yeah.
And I
We're pretty good kids, let me tell you.
oh, you're great. I'm so proud of you. I can't express my I I don't know how to say I love you guys and I respect you and I am proud of you and uh two of you have married well and
Yeah,
that that
you're a good
that's
husband.
satis that's satisfying in itself that you're selective enough to choose wonderful, wonderful spouses. And
It's true.
I Danny is uh, like a son,
Yeah, but,
right?
yeah, Danny and
Yeah,
Travis are amazing people.
yep.
I'm really happy they're part of our family,
I
so
couldn't. Of course, they're two different people. It's not like you both married astrophysicists or something. It
yeah,
was just two
they're very
two
different.
totally different personalities and different people. That's fine.
Oh, that's yeah, that's the beauty of
I would.
our
I'd feel
family.
it'd be kind of weird if they were both doctors or something, and
It would
or
be
lawyers or something. And I'm sure that in some families that's like the
the
tradition. As
thing.
a matter of fact, my cardiologist in Arkansas, uh, his father and his sister were cardiologists.
Oh, wow.
that's crazy, like, "Whoa."
Okay, okay, just living the cardiologist dream. There you go.
Yeah,
Awesome, live
so,
following in your
anyway,
dad's footsteps. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up,
okay. Yeah, I
and,
I I I got into some of the Vietnam stuff, but not everything by any means, and there's still some really cool stories
oh,
about
yeah, we have years.
crazy beach jumpers.
We have
Huh?
years, Dad. We have years to talk about
Yep,
Vietnam.
we do, and, uh, the if you I don't really, I would say, cherish those memories of being in combat in
But they're
Vietnam.
important.
I would prefer to have not been in combat in Vietnam, but since got pushed into it, not I didn't volunteer for it. Matter of fact, when I chose the Navy, I mean, me and Al Brooks were sitting around one night drinking beers and playing checkers or something, and we decided to go into the Navy. When we went through all the services, except the Coast Guard. We went through the Air Force and the Army and the Marines and, chose the Navy. And the reason why was that we would not be in combat.
Mm,
We would be what they say, 3 hots in a cot,
yeah.
and that's what we wanted. We did not wanna
Oh my
to
god.
go into the Marines or the Army and be sent into ground combat in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we chose the Navy. And guess what?
You went to combat.
That's right, I got into freaking beach jumpers and went out with the Marines. So
So, it was
I
inevitable.
defeated my purpose for going in the Navy. Wee, you know, but, yeah, but I was, uh,
But you
able to
survived.
survive.
You
I
survived.
didn't get sent into some wacky thing, and I did have one of the advantages I had is I went through Army basic training and
Yeah.
Army artillery school, so I knew a lot of things about, being in combat through the training that may have saved my bacon, I don't know,
Probably.
but a lot of the average sailor didn't go to Army boot camp, Army basic training. I
No,
mean,
but it
yeah, I
probably
was
saved your life you'd like to more than you'd like to admit. So,
yeah,
which is good because 'cause you're here.
yep.
So, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up
Uh,
for this podcast, and, we still have many, many things to go over, especially in
yep,
Vietnam. So we are just we wanna thank everybody for joining us today, and please like, comment, share with your family and friends, subscribe to this channel if you can, and as always, please be safe out there, especially on the roadways. As a trucker, I always tell you, be careful on the roadways. They are very dangerous, and we will see you next week.